Okay, so the OIG report, Office of Inspector General, has come out. The broad consensus from what I've heard, I didn't see the press conference with Christopher Wray of the FBI, but I've come to the conclusion from reactions I've seen that most people are not happy with the report, apart from, people who were like, well, this doesn't really show that anything happened. It shows the FBI did things very well. But there were, a number of worrying things there that showed that obviously the FBI is basically a house of cards now. First of all, I believe that the most damning conclusion was by the report saying that Director Jim Comey departed from departmental procedure in conducting the FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton. There'll probably be a little more material on that tomorrow. Then there was also a few conclusions about how Andrew McCabe dealt with whether to recuse himself from the investigation, where they said, well, technically he was under no obligation to recuse himself from the investigation. So a lot of people will probably now take this to be, a vindication of what he said, of his conduct. But the fact of the matter is that Andrew McCabe was fired partly as a result of his dishonesty when talking to the FBI's own Inspector General Department investigators when they were looking at him. So today we're just going to focus on a little part. I don't know how long this will be. I'm hoping it's not going to be long, but you know how shit happens. There were 4 departments that they came up with, and they were explained in this way. Okay. The first were text messages of a political nature commenting on Trump and Clinton. Then there was text messages that combine expressions of political sentiments with a discussion of mid-year investigation. Mid-year was the investigation of Hillary Clinton. That was a code name that they had for it. The third category raised similar questions with respect to the Russia investigation. So that's mixing a political statement with talking about the Russia investigation. Then they also say we also include a 4th category of text messages that have received significant public attention. These messages are included to provide context and further explanation as to their meaning and do not necessarily implicate potential bias in either the mid-year or Russia investigations. Examples of these 4 categories of text messages are discussed below. So let's go to the first category, August 16th, 2015. So these are the ones that comment on Trump or Clinton, but not with reference to a specific investigation. So on April 16th, 2015, Peter Strzok says, Bernie Sanders is an idiot like Trump. Figure they cancel each other out. So that's just a little, it's not implicating him in anything, but it just shows his attitude towards 1 or 2 candidates. February 12th, 2016, Page says, I'm no prude, but I'm really appalled by this. So you don't have to go looking in case you hadn't heard. Trump called him the P word. The man has no dignity or class. He simply cannot be president. With a slur for Ted Cruz, Donald Trump further splits voters. So this was presumably, this was during the primary season when Donald Trump was really attacking Ted Cruz, calling him Lion Ted and also attacking his wife, Heidi Cruz, who, think about her being our first lady. If that happened, that'd be a strange situation. Then February 12, 2016, Strzok says, oh, Trump's abysmal. I keep hoping the charade will end and people will just dump him. The problem then is Rubio will likely lose to Cruz. The Republican Party is in utter shambles. When was the last competitive ticket they offered? So this sounds a little more like he's in frustration. Then March 3rd, 2016, Page says, God, Trump is a loathsome human. And Strzok replies, oh my God, Trump's an idiot. Page says he's awful. Strzok says God, Hillary should win 100 million to 0. Then March 3rd, same day. Also, did you hear Trump make a comment about the size of his dick earlier? This man cannot be president. So I think that was in response to Marco Rubio's small hands attack. And then when you get into that, look, the fact of the matter is somebody brought that up, and Trump was reacting to it, which it's still hard to believe that happened. But I remember it too, so it did. March 12, 2016, Page forwarded an article about a far-right candidate in Texas stating, "What the fuck is wrong with people?" Strzok replied, "That Texas article is depressing as hell, but answers how we could end up with President Trump." So that's denigrating a part of the country. Page says, "I cannot believe Donald Trump is likely to be an actual serious candidate for president." That's on March 16th. June 11th, 2016, Strzok says they fully deserve to go and demonstrate the absolute bigoted nonsense of Trump. Then July 8th, 2016, Page says Donald Trump is an enormous douche. July 19th, 2016, Page says Trump barely spoke, but the first thing out of his mouth was, "We're going to win so big. The whole thing is like living in a bad dream." Then Trump, on July 21st, Strzok says, "Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be." August 26th, this was the one, I'd heard about this one before. Strzok says, "Just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support." So the implication is that this is of disdain. Now you could also, if you really want to split hairs, you could say, well, I mean, we could just smell the aroma in the air. You know, you could put a positive spin on it too. I mean, but given what we know about these people, it's safe to assume it was negative. September 26, 2016, Page says, Page sent an article to Strzok saying, why Donald Trump should not be president, stating, "Did you read this? It's scathing, and I'm scared." October 19th, 2016, Strzok says, "I am riled up. Trump is a fucking idiot, is unable to provide a coherent answer." November 3rd, 2016, Page says, "The New York Times probability numbers are dropping every day. I'm scared for our organization." That is a very telling statement over there, that she was looking at these polls and looking at what's going on with Trump and saying it's a problem that he might be president. Let me just check this. November 3rd, 2016, Strzok says Jill Stein and moron Gary Johnson are fucking everything up too. Again, attacking candidates. November 7th, 2016, Strzok says, referencing an article entitled "A Victory by Mr. Trump Remains Possible," Strzok stated, "Oh my God, this is fucking terrifying." November 13th, 2016, Page says, "I bought all the president's men. I figure I needed to brush up on Watergate." That's in reference to the book by Woodward and Bernstein. Both Strzok and Page agreed to multiple voluntary interviews with the Office of Inspector General regarding, among other things, their text messages. The OIG asked Strzok and Page each to comment in general on the text messages. Strzok explained that the text messages reflected his personal opinion talking to a friend. He stated that ingrained in FBI culture was a bright and inviolable line between what you think personally and belief and the conduct of your official business, and that the political opinions he expressed in the text messages were never transited into the official realm in any way, not in discussions, not in acts. Now, the fact is that they were using FBI phones to say these things, so, you know, they were just, I mean, if you want to be super legalistic, they were transited into the workplace. Maybe they weren't transited into the actual work, but what are you going to do? I don't know what the law is. I actually don't think that they can be convicted of it. It's a problem. So then there's a footnote. It says, among the text messages forensically recovered by the OIG in May 2018 was another exchange about all the president's men. On March 14, 2017, Page texted, finally 2 pages away from finishing All the President's Men. Did you know the president resigns in the end? Strzok replied, what? God, that we should be so lucky. So by then, you do get to the point where you say, oh, these people, they're not trying to remain unbiased in any way in their handling of the investigation at all. In the investigation, not in term. I mean, you can't be unbiased in terms of your opinions on things that are of public concern. But, you know, with something like this, it shows that they were not maintaining that separation. It is difficult. So let's keep reading. Strzok acknowledged that it was dumb to do that on a government device, but distinguished his private exchanges with Page from a more public forum where expressing such views might call into question the integrity of the FBI investigation. When questioned about the possibility that exchanges on his government advice could be hacked, obtained by the media, or otherwise exposed to the public, he acknowledged that I can envision a number of scenarios where it could impact an investigation. Strzok stated most people would have no idea of his partisan affiliation and that it was a point of pride on mid-year, again, that's the Clinton investigation, that we absolutely conducted that investigation and pursued the truth in a manner that was protected from bias or influence and was simply apolitical. He further stated, I did not either in mid-year or in any other case in a vacuum. I had subordinates, I had peers, I had supervisors, and that none of these people would say that he had acted in a biased manner in carrying out his official duties. Page told us that these text messages reflected her personal opinions regarding candidate Trump's fitness to be president and her preference for Clinton, but that she did not allow her political views to impact investigative steps on the mid-year investigation. She stated, because I was on the Clinton investigation, I've actually felt extremely constrained from talking to anyone about politics at all. And so, Pete being a good friend, it was in a way a safe place to sort of have a conversation about what was the normal sort of news of the day, because we both knew that it wasn't impacting anything that we were doing. She pointed out that many of the text messages in question were sent after the mid-year investigation was effectively concluded on July 5th, 2016, at which point she said she personally felt less constrained to express an opinion. Page stated that she was responsible for no single decision at all with respect to the case, but that her role was rather to communicate information between FBI executive leadership and the investigative team. She also said she was not the sole source of information to executive leadership. When asked about using her FBI-issued phone for these exchanges, Page told us the predominant reason that so this is important. This undermines her actual credibility as anything, as a witness, it really hurts her credibility. It says the predominant reason that we communicated on our work phones was because we were trying to keep our affair secret from our spouses. Page also said, I guess I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. I'm an American. We have the First Amendment. I'm entitled to an opinion. I still see it as so separate from the investigative activity we were taking in mid-year that I didn't really think about it, to be honest with you. So this is why I think that this hurts her credibility, possibly hurts Strzok's credibility if you lump them both together. If you assume that he agrees with her. So these are work phones, and I have had at times in the past I have had phones that were issued to me by my job. And people would use them to bullshit with each other or whatever. Now, it's a little different for somebody who's in a average job, whatever, maybe a tow truck driver or whatever. So he can screw around with the work issued phone, maybe, send stupid pictures of, chimps or something. This is a law enforcement organization. On top of that, one dealing with a lot of classified information and national security issues, especially with reference to the Clinton investigation. And what she basically admits is that they were using the cover of their professional life in order to conceal a personal affair from their spouses, and that's that's a very unprofessional admission. Um, the other issue is that they try to make it seem like, oh, we were just saying personal things that they don't affect the quality of our work. But the reality is that in this case, you've already allowed personal business to be conducted on your government issued phone with the whole affair. So you're already bringing your affair into your workplace, which I mean, there's no way it cannot be in the workplace. They met through their job. They met through working on this investigation. So this severely undercuts their credibility. If they were to be questioned in Congress, if they were to be subpoenaed and if they would appear, they would essentially, all of their credibility would immediately evaporate. So there's category 2, text messages discussing political sentiments and the mid-year investigation. So the first batch were ones that they just showed their opinions. They didn't show how it affected the outcome of an investigation or affected or whether they reflected on the investigation itself. We provided background and context where possible to assist in understanding the text messages. We also include the explanations provided by Page and Strzok about these text messages. February 24th, 2016, in connection with a discussion about how many people from the FBI and department should be present during a potential interview of former Press Secretary Clinton, Page stated in February 24th, 2016 text message to Strzok, "One more thing, she might be our next president. The last thing you need us going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that was more DOJ than FBI?" Strzok replied, "Agreed." Page sent a similar text message to McCabe and another FBI employee around the same time, adding that having a larger number in the room is not operationally necessary and that this is as much about reputational protection as anything. These text messages occurred at almost the midpoint of the mid-year investigation before Clinton's interview was formally scheduled. Ultimately, Clinton was interviewed on July 2nd, 2016, and there were 3 FBI and 5 department officials in the room. Page did not attend the interview. Both Page and Strzok told the OIG that these messages did not reflect that the FBI took into account the likelihood that former Secretary Clinton would be president when conducting her interview. Page told us that her text message was advocating that the FBI should follow the practice we always follow with respect to those who would attend Clinton's interview and not do something that might otherwise negatively impact Clinton's thinking or her feeling about the FBI in general. She stated that having fewer people present in an interview is generally better for building rapport and ensuring that the right people are asking the questions, and that by loading for bear, she meant having a large number of interviewers in the room, which might look like we're trying to intimidate Clinton. Strzok told us he did not interpret Page's text message to suggest that the FBI should treat Clinton differently because she might be the next president. And he stated that he was certain he made no decision based on anything Clinton might be or become or have done. No, that's actually in complete contradiction to the actual statement. Because he says he agrees, and she also claims, this could reflect badly on us if she eventually becomes president and she won't remember whether it's the DOJ or the FBI. The fact of the matter is that if you look at the record of the Clintons with the FBI, firing an FBI director 4 years before completion of his term, that was Bill Sessions in 1993, and probably a lot of departmental lore about the Clintons, it makes total sense that it had to do with whether they were afraid of being targeted for retaliation if she became president. What she's trying to say is, no, I was trying to say that we should make this consistent with every other investigation that we typically conduct. That doesn't make any sense, because otherwise Why would she have had to bring up the fact that Clinton might be the next president? It's virtually it's like saying, I didn't want you to worry about those. Do you ever see that episode of Seinfeld where he goes for a gig somewhere, he flies somewhere, and the booking agent, the woman, tells him that the pilot of the plane that he was flying on is in the audience because she says, I didn't want you to freak out. That's essentially that's the case here. She's basically saying, oh, I didn't want us to freak out about Clinton being the next president, but that doesn't mean that I thought that the investigation should be tampered with in any way or changed in any way, altered. Let's not use the word tampered because of her position. Well, then why did you mention it? July 26, 2016. Strzok and Page exchanged a series of text messages on July 26, 2016, while they appear to be watching television coverage of the Democratic National Convention. In the course of this exchange, Page texted, yeah, it's pretty cool. Clinton just has to win now. I'm not going to lie, I got a flash of nervousness yesterday about Trump. The Sandinistas have the potential to make a very big mistake here. Strzok responded, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the anarchist Assanges who will take federal information and disclose it to disrupt. We've got to get the memo and brief and casing file done. So I don't know how long. I mean, if this was a whole fluid text message, then the next statement becomes just ridiculous. Strzok told us that the memo he was referring to was the closing letterhead memorandum summarizing the Clinton email server investigation. Strzok said he was not certain that the brief and case filing referred to, but speculated these could have related to a FOIA filing. When asked if his text message meant that LHM needed to be completed because he was worried about Trump and wanted Clinton to win, Strzok said no, not at all. He described this exchange as a discussion that is purely in that private, personal realm about beliefs and opinions that are personal opinions intermixed with discussion of work tasks, because as a work colleague, there are a lot of things going on and they do get intermixed. Well, that would make sense if there was a long gap between one message or another. If that message, and we're not watching this on the phone, like some messages, you see on the same thread, 3 hours later, let's say somebody messages at 12 o'clock and they say, hey, maybe we could go get Mexican for lunch, Mexican food. And then three hours later, they text you about, wanting to rent a movie, well, not rent a movie anymore, but, whether to, leave the air conditioning on. Let's say it's your roommate and they're about to leave the apartment or something. So the gap in time and the change in subject, that would imply that the two topics are not related. In this case, you would have to see that it would have to be demonstrated that those two statements, one of them, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the anarchist Assanges who will take federal information and disclose it to the public. And the second one, we've got to get the memo and the brief and the case filing done. It would have to be demonstrated that those were separate, that they were not part of the same thought. Otherwise, I would say that this is a complete lie. Because if there's a common thread of consciousness, you don't suddenly, in the same text message, insert, whereas at one point you were talking about something that's your personal political opinion over something nothing to do with work, and then in the same paragraph you insert something to do with work. Then they're not separated by definition. I mean, you can't just arbitrarily say, well, I put the separation in here. Well, why'd you include it in the same thought? So when asked if his text message meant that the LHM needed to be completed, I think I read this part. Strzok stated that the mixing work and personal communication in the same text message exchange or on the same device was, quote, dumb, and acknowledged that it could create a perception issue. I just described the perception issue. Everybody who knows about text messaging understands that certain things when running together don't look good. He again emphasized that he never took any investigative step designed to help or hurt Clinton or Trump. Page told us that she was not sure what the memo and brief and case filing referred to, but that it might have been a related classified issue. She stated that she did not read Strzok's text message to connect the need to get the memo and brief and case filings done with his political preferences. Rather, Page stated that she thought that the use of Fed in the text message may have been an erroneous autocorrection of an unclassified acronym of a code name, and that Strzok was referring to concerns about leaks by actors like Assange who will leak classified information. So where does it say Fed? Who will take Fed information? Okay. Text messages are discussing political sentiments in the Russia investigation. This is category 3. In this section, we highlight examples of text messages that appear to combine expressions of political sentiments with discussion of the Russian investigation. We provide background and context where possible to assist in understanding the text messages. We also include the explanations provided by Page and Strzok about these text messages. On July 31st, 2016, in connection with the formal opening of the FBI's Russia investigation, Strzok texted Page, "And damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't fuck something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you." So what does that mean? You know, if you're making, basically he's making an opinion, explicitly an opinion on a work topic. Okay, so the previous one, he said it mattered because you don't want to fuck something up. In this case, it matters because it matters. No, when you're investigating crimes, unfortunately, if you want to make it seem like the department is behaving or the bureau is behaving in a according to standard procedure, you would not differentiate between the importance of two different investigations before you actually have proof of a crime in either one, or at least in one of them. Strzok told us the other one referred to in the text message was the mid-year investigation. He said his text message was comparing and contrasting the mid-year investigation with the Russia investigation and reflected his view that if there is criminal activity there in mid-year, it is comparatively limited versus allegations in the Russia investigation, which are the most extraordinarily potentially grave conduct. He said that his assessment of the significance of the Russia investigation was not affected by his personal feelings toward Trump, and that would be the same if another campaign was involved. Well, no. Because he says this matters because this matters. You can't call yourself objective and unbiased when you're giving your opinion on an actual job that you're trying to do. I mean, this is where the whole argument, well, I have the freedom to say whatever I want, that runs out in the case of somebody working for the Department of Justice, because now you're talking about the actual job you're doing. And now you're also drawing a line in the sand between one type of job and another type of job. Or no. You're drawing a line in the sand between two examples of the same type of activity, investigating, a crime. On August 6, 2016, in an exchange on... Why do they have to write it twice? Page forward Strzok a news article relating to Trump's criticism of the Khans, the Gold Star family who appeared at the Democratic National Convention, and stated, "Jesus, you should read this, and Trump should go F himself." Strzok responded favorably to the article and added, "And F Trump." Page replied, "So, this is not to take away from the unfairness of it all, but we are both deeply fortunate people." She then sent another text message, "And maybe you're meant to stay where you are because you're meant to protect the country from that menace." There you go. They're stating, I mean, this is you're basically playing a role here as the Lone Ranger keeping Trump out of power. That's what it is. You're now injecting personal opinion into the workplace. To that end, read this, and forwarded a David Brooks column from the New York Times about Trump's enablers in the Republican Party who had not opposed Trump. Strzok responded, "Thanks, it's absolutely true that we're both very fortunate. And of course, I'll try and approach it that way. I just know that it will be tough at times. I can protect our country on many levels. Not sure if that helps. So think about it this way. She forwards an article about Trump political foes within the Republican Party that she considers to have been too weak to actually confront him and stop him. And then she also says, that's why I think that you are meant to play this role. Excuse me. I am a little tired today. I don't know if I'm going to finish the whole thing. But this is essentially admitting that there was a political bent. Because she's saying, well, the party wasn't strong enough to stand up and stop Trump. But we will be. Well, now you're basically saying, well, you're looking at the FBI in the person of Strzok and the Department of Justice, which is herself, are, the last vanguard in the fight to keep Trump from ruining the country. When asked to explain what she meant, you're meant to protect the country from the menace, Page began by stating, I was totally appalled that the president would insult the father of a dead service member and just find that unconscionable and disgusting and cruel. Fact is that he didn't insult the family anyway, but she also stated that the menace was the potential threat to national security that Trump or his people pose if the predication for the Russian investigation is true. Strzok told us that he did not interpret Page's reference to protect the country from that menace to refer to Trump. He stated, I take menace a little differently. I take menace as, again, I view any foreign interference with our election process to be a threat, to be a violation of law. So when I see a menace, I know, is that Trump, is that Russian interference? Is it the combination of the two? No, that's not, because think about it this way. She brought up the whole issue in the context of that election debate fiasco with the Kaiser Khan family. So this has nothing to do with the Russia investigation. This has to do with her personal opinions on Trump's character and what she thought that Strzok could do about it. She thought that he was protecting the country not from Russian infiltration in this case, but from insulting the family of a dead service member. August 8th, 2016, in a text message, Page stated, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Strzok responded, no, he's not. We'll stop it. When asked about this text message, Strzok stated that he did not specifically recall sending it, but that he believed that it was intended to reassure Page that Strzok would not be elected, not to suggest that he would do something to impact the investigation. Strzok told the OIG that he did not take any steps to try to affect the outcome of the presidential election in either the mid-year investigation or the Russia investigation. Sorry, guys. Strzok stated that he, or the FBI in general, actually wanted to prevent Trump from being elected. That if he wanted that to happen, to prevent him from being elected, they would not have maintained the confidentiality of the investigation into alleged collusion between Russia and members of the Trump campaign in the months before the election. Page similarly stated that although she could not speak to what Strzok meant by the text message, the FBI's decision to keep the Russia investigation confidential before the election shows that they did not take steps to impact the outcome of the election. Well, the fact of the matter is that there were leaks all the time. I don't know if they came from the Justice Department, but there were leaks. There were leaks within the national security apparatus, and there were also leaks within the Senate and the House, and also, all over the Democratic, the campaigns. They were leaking all the time to the press. August 15th, 2016, in a text message exchange, Strzok told Page, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event that you die before you're 40. The Andy referred to in the text message appears to be FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. McCabe was not a party to this text message, but we did not find evidence that he received it. In an interview with OIG, McCabe was shown the text message, and he told us that he did not know that what Strzok was referring to in the message and recalled no such conversation. Okay, so how could he not know this? It just shows, I mean, in order for people to believe them, it would have to be demonstrated that they're too, people would have to believe that they're too dumb to understand that these people, the FBI's investigators, were too dumb to understand the concept. Where am I? Page likewise told us that she did not know what the text message meant, but that the team and discussions about whether the FBI would have the authority to continue the Russian investigation if Trump was elected. Page testified that she did not find a reference in her notes to a meeting in McCabe's office at the time. I think we're gonna take a break for today. This did take a little longer than I wanted. I am extremely drowsy. So please like this video, share this video, hit the hit the subscribe button, and comment below. And we're gonna keep, kind of analyzing some of these portions of the report. I'm not feeling like this is gonna bring any closure. In fact, unfortunately, the FBI, if it won't clean itself, it will probably be cleaned out by somebody. Eventually, these institutions can't be supported anymore, and people within end up bringing it down totally. Have a nice night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.